Hi, everybody. We'll, as usual, just let people get checked onto their machines there. Can see a few still going. Um, just so you know, first beer we'll be talking about this afternoon is the Chula Vista, which is the lemon and sea salt sour. If you've got it with you, if you're cracking one open already, or what have you, as you want to follow along. Yeah, we'll see. I think we of course were, I can recognize a few faces already. We were joined live by a number of people over at Peakender this weekend, which was fantastic. So may we'll see some people coming back for seconds. Hopefully it's as good this time as we make it through. Unfortunately, no in-person food from Russell this time, which obviously gave it a nice end to the event when we did it there. Few more just clocking in as well. So for those who are just joining us for the first time, my name's James. I'm the export manager over at Thornbridge Brewery. We've got Russell, our taproom manager, Charlotte, our social media coordinator, and Tom Clay, who's very kindly joined us from Stone Brewing. After big weekend hanging out with us at Peakender, he's kindly taken some more time to come and join us and talk about Stone and all things as well there. But as you can see, like I say, a couple more still clocking in, but we don't want anyone getting thirsty. So don't feel any pressure. We're going to talk through all the beers, discuss them, go through them, but you don't have to imbibe in all of them. Please take it steady, save some, but at least we can talk to you about the beers and everything else about them too. So as I mentioned, the first beer we'll be talking about from our box, and for me, just before we even get started, this is probably my favorite box of the year, I reckon, so far. It's all pales. There's no dark. I do like a dark beer, but yeah, for August finally turning around, finally getting a bit of sunshine, this box has been really good. So it kicks straight off. As I say, we'll get stuck in talking about Chula Vista. So this is a follow-on from our sour series. We have our kettle sours we've been doing for quite a while now. Florida Vice. We've gone into Floresta, Haywood, most recently the Kiwi and Lime. And we've continued that. So still 4.2%. Our brewers have really got that kind of kettle sour recipe nailed in now. So they're really excited to just keep experimenting with it. And when we do beers like that, we know that real citrus note is kind of it helps really balance it out. We've done lots of big berries, but on the back of the kiwi and lime, we thought we'd keep going with that. So we went to lemon this time. And then with the sea salt too. So you get almost that kind of Mexican lager feel a lot of people have been commenting on with this one. Certainly that big American, towards the south of the US at least, with that sour, that salty, it's very refreshing. And for me, it's been a real sort of favorite. Again, I mentioned it's that nice sunny August beer for me. Russell, have you been enjoying the Chula Vista?
Yeah, it's been great. We're lucky enough to have it on draft at the moment at the tap room, so we're sinking a few halves of those. It's not super lip smacking, so it doesn't turn your face inside out. Yeah, it's quite subtle. It's nice, and those cider drinkers we get in as well, we try and convert into a sour beer drinker. So yeah, we've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely get that as well when cider drinkers, even wine drinkers, people who've maybe coming up and wanting to try something a bit different, we found this goes really nicely. Have you had the chance, Clay, to try this one out of the box this month at all?
Yeah, so I had it actually at the stag when it was on
Nice.
there. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, my partner's a big fan as well for the sours as well. So yeah, super light. I think the box really complements itself really well.
Good. Yeah, it's thanks. Like I say, I think definitely a sunny. We were worried a bit in July when we were looking at this box, and we're like, this is the sunniest box we've done, and July is such a complete washout. But thankfully, it came back around for it in August. We named this one. So we had our key account manager Luke, who really good guy. He's got lots of names he's been coming up with, and we're always asking for new names and things. And he was really excited for Chula Vista. It was the lemon capital of the world at one point back in the 1920s. It's a town in California. The name means cool view. So it all came together. We thought it was fantastic. And then the artwork was able to tie in nicely with that kind of vibe and things as well. But he was a bit offended when after being very proud of this name, we were also really excited. We were like, great name, Luke, well done. And he met this American. He was so pleased. He's like, look, I've named this beer after Chula Vista. And she turned around, she's like, that is the butthole of California. No one likes Chula Vista. That is the worst place. And he was absolutely gutted. So we haven't told too many people that story, but it did make me chuckle. So yeah, after that, we teased him, of course, but we thought it was quite a fun name as well. So far, all good feedback for it. It's done in the same way as our other kettle sours now. So the brewers will refer to it as a kettle sour, a simple sour. We have our barrel aging program. You know, we do these sour beers with Brettanomyces, Lactobacillus, Pediococcus that take over a year often to age out fully in barrel. And that depth and that dimension there, the sourness is really impactful. On these ones, we need something, it gives a little more stability to the beer, and we can brew them, and it keeps that really good consistency. It's not changing over time, as you see with the Brettanomyces. So these beers take us the same amount of time as our usual ones, between 3 and 4 weeks. We're looking at brewing up a classic sort of beer originally, just a normal beer, goes over into, we have what we call the sour tank. So we'll do 50 hectoliters, 5,000 liters, goes over to there. And then we'll add in a lactic culture into there. So it goes through in about 24 hours, just souring this beer. We'll pop it back to the brew kettle, boil it, kill off any bacteria. And then after that, it continues as a great kettle sour from there. So as I say, sort of simple sour, kettle sour. We're adding in our ingredients in there, be it the berries or the kiwis, or in this case, of course, the lime, the lemon and sea salt as well. And it does, like I say, it gives us that consistency. It gives us a product we can do into cans, do into keg. I've seen a really fun pickup for this beer. For me, in exports around the last month or two since we've had it as well. And I know it went very well at Peakender too. So giving us that fantastic, nice summer beer there. Just seeing on the Steve, nice to see you there, Steve Hughes, who has made it up to the Peakender. That was fantastic. And then Steve Grumpy Tap as well. Also good to see you too. So really pleased with everyone who made it into there. Robert, first Peakender. Well, thank you very much. I'm glad you made it up as well. And it was really nice to see people in person. Like I say, we'll be doing the same thing again, I'm sure, next year when we come around to Peakender. So keep an eye. Hopefully you can make it up. We did get lucky. There was a little bit of rain on the Friday, but after that, you know, it actually brightened up. I got a sunburn at one point, actually. So it did, yeah, certainly got there. I know I saw a few other red faces going around as well. So I'm sure there was some other sunburns there too. But hopefully, as I say, we're kicking off here with Chula Vista. Please keep the comments, anything in the chat as well. If you were at Peakender, if you couldn't make it, if you've enjoyed the beers out and about elsewhere as well. You'll even find us, we're at Arboretum Festival in Nottingham this weekend. So there's no stopping for the events team at the brewery. They just keep being out and about everywhere as well. So that one was, as I say, that was Chula Vista. And now one of Russell's favorites, I believe, the California Sun. Russell, you've been enjoying this one a lot. We've had it on cask, we've had it on keg in the tap room. Tell us a bit about this one.
Yeah, so West Coast IPA, you know, typically quite punchy, which we'll get to later on, I suppose, with one of the later on. But this is a session West Coast IPA. So West Coast, kind of pine, citrusy, quite bitter. The opposite to those, and I remember saying it in the tap room on Saturday, and I offended a few people, but those average drinkers that love an East Coast hazy, juicy beer. I hate the description juicy, but that's what they call East Coast beers. But yeah, so this is the opposite, you know, for a few more distinguished drinkers, shall we say. Loads of the big C hops. So in this one, Centennial, Chinook, Columbus, Cascade. And yeah, I don't want to be repetitive, but I know everyone wasn't there on Saturday. But yeah, our house yeast is California Ale. So it's a real blank yeast, and it really lets the hop shine. So we get as much flavour as we can out of the hops, whilst dialing down the ABV, so you can have a lot more of it, I suppose, as well. So yeah, we've enjoyed it on cask in the tap room, and then we've just switched over now, and we're serving it on keg now. So it's gone down really, really well. Kind of crystal clear. It should be. You can't see it on the camera, but yeah, crystal clear. And yeah, really nice drink, that one. And we've done it for a few years, obviously. But it's great when it makes a return. It's always really, really popular as well.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. I think it was 2019 we released it first in Cannes. We did the 330 mils. We had a bit of a, we called it sort of the summer of California sun, and did some, we did some tours, some visits, events, and things like that with all the cans too. It went down very well. But do you prefer cask or keg when you've had it in the tap room?
Oh, definitely cask. Yeah, I think the cooler temperature the milder temperature of a cask beer really brings out the flavour. I think it's great. There's so much bitterness in it. It's quite pungent, and it's still quite a low ABV beer as well. So I managed to have a couple of these on Sunday, whilst also getting quite sunburnt as well. James, I was quite pink by the end of Sunday, but not as pink as my other half. She looked like a lobster, and I've been calling her Sebastian ever since. Brilliant. So yeah, that was probably down to California sun, to be honest.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the only ones who it got, I don't think. But yeah, it was popular all over Peakender as well. So
yeah.
Did you try this one as well, Clay? Was this in the at the Stag at Peakender? You said you tried it, I think.
Yeah, I've had it a couple of times actually. I had it on a cask, and also Peakender as well. Cask is great. I mean, this is quintessentially the sort of beer that I just love drinking. A beer that can be so great in terms of balance of that West Coast style, but also translates really well on keg as well as cask, which I think sometimes with the hop additions, it's sometimes difficult to get that balance. But yeah, this is my go-to, I think, out of the range in the box.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's got that old school Russell. You mentioned those C hops that are in there as well, and they were classics for a reason. Those hops, and they still work very well today. Be it Jaipur, California Sun, anything like that. So we've had a really good feedback on it. Hopefully people can see it around on cask as well as keg and can, of course, in your box too. But yeah, let us know in the chat again how you're enjoying these ones so far, the Cali Sun particularly as the latest one. But we'll keep talking through the box. So we've got of course the latest now Quiet Storm series, then we've got our Stone collab and the big finisher with the DDH Halcyon as well. So as I say, we've got quite a lot coming up. You may have seen it or even tried it this weekend, but we have our Timothy Taylor's collab we just launched. So one to look for in next month's box. Of course, Beer Club members will be getting it delivered to them. Fantastic can with elderflower and gooseberry in there too. I'm excited for it already coming into, I've tried it at Peakender and it's still going to turn up at my house in my Beer Club box. It's going to be great. So just a little sneaky look ahead as we go to next month. But for now, we have our Quiet Storm series. So the Quiet Storms, as we know, that fantastic expression of the different hop varieties. We like using a lot of US hops, but we use English, German, New Zealand, Australian. And this is one, it's quite a recent hop, but it's been in development for a long time. So they have a public breeding program in the US for different hops to kind of try and really push the boundaries. It is such a successful industry over there. And they want to help it and carry it along where they can too. And this has come out of that. So this is one of the newer ones. And for me, it packs so much of the punch you'd expect in a big modern US hop. So the Vista, it's, again, a second Vista in this box. We had the sort of autumn Vistas, but this time actually with the hops in too. So this one, as you'd expect, as I say, it's tropical, it's melon, it's mango. A big kind of honeydew is something they've aimed for in this one. And really overall, I think, again, another fantastic one to try. If you pop your nose in, you start to get that instant tropical aroma already from this one. And then it follows right through. I think it's that, for me, it's almost a little soft in the sense of that, like they said, honeydew. And that one really stuck with me from this, that kind of soft, juicy melon feel to it as well. And as always, it's that same malt base as you get in all of our Quiet Storm single hop series. And I just love that white head that we always get around here. It's condensed, it's nice, it gives you the great mouth feel too. And so keep telling us how you've enjoyed the Quiet Storm Vistas and things in there as well. But before we back on, Russell, how's the Quiet Storm Vista been for you? Have you seen it go well in the tap room? Have you been enjoying it?
Yeah, it's been good actually. We've got kind of a permanent line now, I suppose, dedicated to Quiet Storm, and we're going through them all. So we went from Eclipse, Goldens, Cascade, and then we're on Vista now. So Cascade for me was one of the best after Harlequin and Amarillo. and then all the way back to Nelson Sauvin. But this is, it's done really, really well. Yeah, I get that kind of melon feel from it. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a journey for me. I'm kind of learning about beer flavors and hops as I go along, so I get to see what I like and what I don't like. And I'm not saying I don't like Vista, but it's not my favourite. That's all I said. I think you know that, James. You know it's not one of my favourites, but it's because I'm so passionate. I think about some of the others, but still a great beer. Yeah, for a single hop pale, you know, to get that kind of amount of flavour out of that hop, it's really fantastic.
Yeah, and that's exactly what the box is for. Well, the series of Quiet Storms is for, to see which hops you like, which you don't. If someone's asking you about beers with those different hops in, it already gives you a good idea of what to expect from it as well. We've found, particularly for me with our export customers, the journey that they've been able to do, across Europe, and we sell these as far as Japan and elsewhere as well, these different Quiet Storm beers. And it is great. The feedback that we get from different people from learning with us about these different hops too has been good. As you say, some people like, some don't. I've found this quite one of my sort of, probably like you say, I'd go definitely that Nelson was always going to be one of my absolute favorites, but I'd certainly put the Vista up there for me, just as something a little different. We go very traditional next month, you'll see, with German hops as well. Again, just keeping that sort of differentiation going as well too. So that takes us through the first ones. And of course, I don't want to keep Tom waiting any longer, and appreciate you taking the time to come join us, Tom. But the big beer, really, we've got our DDH Halcyon in there. This one's been wrestling along with it there as well. But we've got you on, so please, Tom is the UK sales manager for Stone. Him and I did a placement together many years ago in the US, so we've known each other a long time. Even at Peakender, we talked about it, between us back in the day. This must have been 12 years ago. We were contacting Stone Brewery. We were a little pub over in upstate New York, and we were sending out empty casks to Stone Brewing and getting them to send us, filled casks back as well. So they would send them chilled straight to the pub. We'd pop them on there, and we held little events and things like that. So we had Ruination and all sorts of fantastic beers from Stone. So we were talking about it at the weekend. We've come back round. Tom's here representing Stone. I'm here with Thornbridge. We're discussing these things. It's a real nice sort of full circle, really, from learning and working in craft as a first starter in the USA there. So nice to see you, Tom. It's always good to hang out.
Always good to see you, Bukes. Yeah, no, thanks for the introduction. James perfectly took the words out of my mouth, really. It's been quite a journey, I think. It's a privilege to work with Stone. I think in my early journeys getting into beer and that sort of time, 2008, 2011, Stone was a massive sort of imprint to that. I think when you sort of experience sort of the nature of sort of the passion of the American beer industry, we always kind of say at Stone, 27th anniversary for the brewery will be in a couple of weeks, starting 96. So, beer history is a long history, but it's just nice to be part of it, and I think a lot that's changed in that period of time is what's inspired so many great breweries in the UK, and no one better than Thornbridge to brew a beer with, really. I mean, I think as soon as we floated the idea at the beginning of this year in January, when I was actually going over to San Diego for our sales meeting, I landed off the plane, and Dom and George from Thornbridge turned my phone on. The first messages I got were collaboration, make it happen. So I'd like to say we managed to achieve that quite quickly, really, in the grand scheme of things. But when I mentioned it to the brewers and the head operations team at Stone, when I said Thornbridge, they were like, "Yeah, got to make it happen." So I think they also kind of really appreciate the sort of the heritage value that Thornbridge have built in the UK. We all know how important Jaipur was when that beer first came out and everything that followed it. And I think for us as well, starting in 96, that, Stone IPA became the first sort of commercial year-round nationwide West Coast IPA, but by definition, that style, by being available as much as it was across the US, obviously, it was other breweries brewing that style a little bit earlier, but we were the first to sort of really push, break down the doors a little bit and have it available. And I think we had other beers that kind of, came from that. Ruination, as James mentioned, Arrogant Bastard Ale, which I'm sure you may have all come across in time. But in the late 90s, the market was still so new in many ways. I mean, Greg Koch and Steve Wagner, the founders of Stone, they started by drinking Anchor, You know, I think Anchor Steam really in the late 80s, and I think it's kind of the same when you look at Sierra Nevada and that kind of pathway that came through. So I think yeah, they definitely, as entrepreneurs in the 90s, were not afraid to speak their mind, and I think the brand sort of kind of took that and went forward with it. We won with Beer Advocates Best Brewery on the Planet in 08 and 09. And I think it was really interesting to see where the landscape of American beer was then. So I think, you know, it's where we're at now. I think we've got, you know, 3 breweries in the US. Stone started in San Marcos, California. We then opened in 2001 our site in Escondido, which is still our sort of main brewing facility. We'll be showing gardens. Again, being Greg and Steve being environmentalists, it was always about being a little bit more than just a brewery space. So we wanted it to be more immersive for people to come. We owned our own Stone hop farms as well in the mid 2000s, where we grew all our own local produce that were served in the restaurants, and obviously hops as well that we used for our small batch kit. We then opened Liberty Station in 2011. So Liberty Station is in central San Diego. Escondido, for reference, is about 30 miles outside. So Liberty Station is where we do a lot more of our experimental batches. It's interesting talking about sort of Chula Vista. We've got Buena Vista, so you know it means something similar as in views. I think the San Diego border to Mexico is a little bit nicer than maybe that part of California. But but yeah, so I mean, long story short, we kind of opened Liberty, and I think 10-barrel brew kit, and it allowed us to be a lot more playful. I think for many years we were very stricken towards the sort of beers that we were making, that obviously after the first 10 years of being a brewery, everybody, you know, wanted those beers. And we've created a series called Vertical Epic, which was we basically every day, month or year, we release the same beer, so a different variation of the beer, but under that series. So it could be 222, so second of the second of the second. We did that through to 12, 12, 12 for obvious reasons. But so we were always looking to be innovative. But I think when we opened Liberty, that really sort of changed the landscape a little bit in terms of we could focus on the commercial beers that kind of made us what we'd become in the US, but also keep playing around with new modern styles. And then fast forward to where we are today, we will look to have our head of innovation come over, Chris Ketchum, who's an absolute legend in the brewing industry in the US, and a super lovely guy. It was his second time ever in the UK. His first time was about 10 years ago when he went up to Fraserburgh, when a little brewery that started up there. He much preferred the Peak District. But yeah, so he came over and he brought over a 5-kilo bag of hops in his luggage. His phone call to me the day before was like, am I going to get in trouble by putting a 5-kilo bag of hops in my luggage? And I said, don't worry about it. Safe to say, it was all fine. And the hops are in the beer that you're either now drinking or you've already drank. So yeah, it's an experimental hop form, 586 HBC. Not really sort of come over to these shores. Chris was really excited about it because he's been playing around with it at Liberty Station, a few different batches. And I know when Chris spoke with Rob and the team at Thornbridge, it was a component of a hop that they thought could really work well for this recipe. So that's kind of what brought us into West Side Glory. I think the meeting of two worlds. You know, I think Stone IPA and Jaipur, heritage versus heritage. I mean, Thornbridge have made so many fantastic American collaborations over the years. Odell, Sierra Nevada, Brooklyn, Cigar City, to name a few. So it was always really cool to hear from the Thornbridge guys that Stone was the last sort of piece of the jigsaw, if you will. So yeah, Chris came over, he absolutely loved it. He got to see Thornbridge Hall. His profile picture on his Instagram, his email, and his Facebook is him sat in a photo in Thornbridge Hall. And also his predecessor, Mitch Ward, Mitch Steele, sorry, who was a big component of making a lot of the old school Stone beers. He actually been to Thornbridge Hall, so Chris was jealous. So he was calling him as soon as we got there, just to tell me been. So yeah, I think just two really cool sort of breweries where, like I say, there's a lot of heritage, a lot of history. But I think we've made a great beer, and yeah, cheers to West Side Glory.
Cheers, guy. Yeah. Well, thank you for the history. It's always very interesting to, I mean, as mentioned earlier, we were buying and selling their beers many years ago. They're such an integral part of beer history, you know, worldwide, really, with the gargoyle and everything else. You can see it. I know, of course, you export an awful lot as well, not just to the UK, but elsewhere. And with good reason. It's all fantastic stuff. Chris had that tasting pack he bought with him for the event we did in Sheffield, and I mean some of that experimental stuff is just bonkers. Like, it's so good.
Yeah, when he brings the big crowlers out, it's
yeah,
weird how they travel. He's like, I was like, when did you can them? He's like, oh, about 5 days ago. I was like, well, that's a West Coast brewer for you. So it's been canned 5 days. It's probably just not gonna be fresh enough. But no, yeah, really good. And I think you mentioned about the history. I mean, touching on the gargoyle. I mean, if anyone doesn't know too much about that, it was the gargoyle's representation of obviously traditionally, feeding off evil spirits. So that was a component of Stone when we started, was to sort of ward off bad beer basically at the time. And like I say, beer history is a long history, but I think in 27 years, it's crazy to think how much has changed for Stone. But yeah, we're putting our beer fresh into the UK. We bring over usually a 40-foot container every 6 weeks. So everything in steel kegs, same with our package. It's great to play around a little bit. We bring over our cans of the US size kegs and also the US size cans. So 19.2 ounce cans. If you see them out in the wild, it equates to a British pint can size, which is great. So we tend to kind of want to showcase what we're doing back in the US basically here, because we've got the opportunity to do that now. We've got a great distribution partner with James Clay. I also work with a distribution partner up in Scotland, New Wave. So and we're working with some of the best pubs. We actually are one of the very few guest beers in two of the Thornbridge pubs as well in Sheffield, Stag and the Greystones, which is awesome. We do a lot of cool events with that. For anyone who's kind of regional to Sheffield, we're doing a launch of Westside Glory at the Sheffield Tap a week today from 4 p.m, which will also have some Thornbridge and Stone beers on. We'll also be doing some events alongside the Thornbridge team around the UK as well. So keep an eye on the socials. But yeah, we're looking forward to getting out there and sharing beers with you.
Yeah, it's a full history trip for me, having also worked in the Sheffield Tap. So I'm very excited for that one as well. I worked there before and after our year in the US. So yeah, perfect. And what a place to launch it. It's got the little brewery in. If people haven't been, just pop in. You don't need, I mean, Sheffield's lovely, of course. I'm from Sheffield, but you can just pop into the tap in there and then get back on the train, continue your journey down from there as well. Clay, I noticed the permanent line in the Stag, not too far from your house either. So doing pretty well there.
Not too far, always great. I actually grew up just around the corner from the Stag as well, which is ironic. I actually played in the playground when I was like a child, so I would have drink beer now, which is good. So yeah, I mean, I live in Sheffield now, as you can probably guess, but yeah, I was in London for the last 10 years prior, and obviously look after the whole UK. So it's great to have stuff on home ground, I guess, with Thornbridge as well. That amazing relationship. But yeah, it's just great to get around, and I think we're still seeing Stone. Yeah, we're definitely making waves again around the UK with beers, and we're doing a few more events. And I just think this is a perfect fitting example of where we are today. We're pairing up with what, in my opinion, is the best brew in the UK, and yeah, that's the way it should be. I think, and that I think that great partnership comes with great opportunity for us all to share good beers and have a good time.
Yeah, and it's going well already. We've got Steve, great beer. It doesn't taste like 7%, a little dangerous. You get that nice bitterness on the back of it there, I think. But yeah, Robert as well, beer of the weekend. Yeah, old school Westy. And then Paul, the can art as well too. So yeah, I mean, I've mentioned before, but Bex, our creative lead, has joined us recently. She's been doing a lot of work for Peakender behind the scenes and things as well the last couple of weeks. Last couple of months, I suppose. But yeah, this one particularly, we were voting today in the office on our favorite sort of art on cans from Bex, and this was coming out top as well. The Artisan you'll see in the next box we have. But yeah, for me, Westside Glory, it's allowed us, having Bex doing that, it's allowed us to kind of tweak and update our branding as well without having a full branding refit. But yeah, every time anyone's seen the can, looked at it, the feedback has been fantastic. It's that taken from Stone, of course, that big colorway, that bold outlook to it, and that little touch of California as well. So yeah, we'll see lots more things like that coming there too. Russell, how have you been enjoying this one?
Yeah, I've been enjoying this one. This is my beer in the box. But yeah, it was incredible. My story behind this is that we found a unlabeled can in the packaging area, or a couple of them anyway. So a couple of us managers grabbed it and we started trying it, and we were trying to put our finger on what it was, if it was something previous, if it was something new. And then it transpired that it was Westside Glory. So at the time, I was just like, wow, that's a belter of a beer. An amazing West Coast IPA. Wind forward then to Friday of Peakender last week, and I was taking it easy. I worked all day in the tap room, popped down to Peakender to either give a hand or just say hello to some people. And someone said, do you want a beer? First mistake I made, I said yes. Second mistake I made is I let the other half drive, and that's, nothing bad about driving or anything like that, but it meant I could have probably two. yeah, 7%, a couple of pints of that with a live tasting on Saturday morning. Needless to say, yeah, it was. I was a little dry mouthed in the morning, but belter of a beer. Annoyingly, or not really annoyingly, but I think my last like 4 beer of the boxes have always been our collab beers, but they've always kind of been a bit West Coasty, to be honest. There was a Cashbur and a double-barreled collab that we did that was a bit similar to Jaipur, but then obviously, yeah, we had Small Pleasures last time, and then now Westside Glory. So, yeah, for me, absolutely stunning beer, and I've already got a case and a half of it.
Nice.
Good man.
Yeah, it's gone quick, so you did well getting it while it's.
I know, yeah. We were lucky enough to get 19 cases into the tap room, so we've got about 7 left or something. But like I said, I had 2 cases of that. I get a nice discount, to say the least. So I picked up 2 cases, and yeah, like I said, I got a case and a half of that left.
Good on you. Yeah, it's I mean, for me, those sort of new hops, you get a little bit of a Sabro feel. I think it's that slight like undertone of like a sweetness, like a little bit. It isn't as fully coconut, I don't think, but I do pull that out of this one, which I quite like. I think it works very well within the beer itself. But that one, yeah, I mean, you weren't the only person telling that story, Russell. There was a lot of people, I think, Westside Glory, you know, made everyone's weekend, but also possibly gave a few sore heads as it went as well. But it's exciting. The can's really bright. Everyone wants to try it. You know, Clay was wandering around talking to loads of people all weekend. So it was, yeah, had a very nice vibe to it as well. Tom, yeah, caught me out on the Saturday. Yeah, it was, got a few people there. Steve, West Coast is the best coast. Yeah, I mean, you know, of course, we brew lots of big hazies and things like that as well. But with Jaipur as the flagship and, you know, working with people like Stone, it certainly gives us, you know, we love those styles, that bitterness, that clarity. Yeah, they work really well there. So, yeah, it's, I mean, overall, I think certainly been a fun box to do. And Clay, you mentioned a couple of events in Sheffield and things like that, but is there anywhere else, you know, people, we've got lots of beer fans from all over the country here. Is there online, is there bars up in, you know, big cities? Where's the best place to find Stone through the UK?
Yeah, well, what I'd say is, yeah, if you're on Instagram or Facebook, our Stone Brewing UK page is where we definitely update where we're doing a lot of our events and certainly launches and things like that, or anything to do with new beers coming to the UK. Yeah, well, outside of obviously Sheffield, we're also doing another event next Wednesday. If anyone's in the northeast, the Head of Steam Quayside in Newcastle, we'll be doing the first sort of tasting of Westside Glory there as well. We'll be doing something down in London towards the end of September as well, at the Rake. We're just waiting to confirm on a date there, and also something in Brighton as well towards the end of September. So there are a couple of the upcoming events, but yeah, we've got our beer available pretty much nationwide now, really. I'd say, you know, definitely we've got good coverage in London, some really good counts like, you know, Manchester, like I say, the Northeast, Scotland's great. I always love going back up to Scotland because it's, you know, it's a beer crowd and market that feels like it never moved on, but in a good way. You know, and West Coast is the best coast, and I think yeah, I think it's really interesting with West Coast IPA styles in general. I mean, I think we've seen the transition of hops and haze, and I think even the sort of hazy styles we make in the US now on the West Coast, particularly our brewers, they always, if they do a haze, they still want to do it with a West Coast twist because it's, to them, that's, you know, it's the DNA of brewing. So it's nice to sort of see it coming back around again where people start to appreciate more. And I think it's great that we've had this opportunity to brew that beer in that style again, and I think we've executed really well. But yeah, follow our socials, and yeah, hopefully you'll see the beer popping up more often.
Yeah, good. It is one of the things we always reminisce about, I suppose, on the West Coast. Clay and I did have a long, fun weekend in Vegas. We paid for it with our bar tips. We saw, his name is completely escaping me. Who did we see?
Copperfield, David Copperfield.
David Copperfield. We found I think the oldest craft beer bar in Las Vegas and got very nerdy, getting a taxi driver to drive us around looking for good craft beer. So, yeah, West Coast certainly got a good place in everyone's hearts, I think. But particularly, we had some fun there as well too.
We stayed at the Hard Rock Hotel, so we're very rock and roll.
That was it. We saw Paris Hilton. Yeah, it was also it was a fun few days. So
I'd like to say we made a drink of West Coast IPA, but we weren't that involved at that point.
No, her humongous security were very much very far between her and everyone else as well. But yeah, it was good fun. And so yeah, there you go. Oh, the Colmore as well there. You've got some shout outs. Well, we got quite a few people in Birmingham who always join us too. So
Nice,
yes,
cool. Well,
another one.
we're hoping to do an event in Birmingham soon as well, just to let you know. So again, Stone Brewing UK, keep an eye on it.
Perfect. And Charlotte, talking of events and things, I think it was Arboretum this weekend, wasn't it? I had as the main one.
Yeah.
Was there anything I was missing coming up at all?
All I had on my list was Arboretum in Nottingham, Westside Glory Lodge that they've both been mentioned, and then Rivington Farm Trip is coming up as well.
Of course.
Yeah, so
Perfect.
I think that's not next weekend, the weekend after.
Nice.
1st September.
Brilliant. So as you say, no rest for the team getting out and about there. It's cheers, Charlotte. We will be busy. We'll be at Arboretum, as we say, first, and then Rivington too. And then another Colmore lover there as well. So lots of fans for you there, Clay, in Birmingham. So I'm sure it won't be you'll be getting through lots of beer there in the meantime. But that leads us to well, the final beer of the box. It is the biggest in ABV. And this one, I think probably it was a mix of this one and DDH Halcyon, the West Side Glory, sorry, that was getting people in trouble. I think the drinkability, if anyone's had the chance to tuck into DDH Halcyon yet, it is a take on our classic Halcyon. We've been brewing Halcyon for nearly as long as we've been brewing any of our Thornbridge beers. It started at Thornbridge Hall, so originally it was on cask at first, and for me, some of the bigger kind of IPAs and things, they don't always translate on cask, but regular Halcyon always worked really well. It won a number of camera awards, actually being on cask already, and became kind of that, one of the core mainstay beers alongside Kipling, alongside Jaipur, St. Petersburg, and things in cask as well in the early days. And since, we moved to the big site, we still do it now in can quite regularly. We do it in keg. And it's been one of those really historic beers for us, the Halcyon. So over time, we get demand for, of course, we ended up with DDH Jaipur. People want to see, different ways of, and our brewers also want to look at different ways of playing around with core beers. They brew loads of them all the time. And Halcyon, as it's not as, it's not quite as core anymore. We still do it every so often. We have lots of other big IPAs coming in. But we've done the DDH Jaipur, and people asked, why not do more DDH? You've got some of these beers that are renowned for their big hops. And we said, well, why not? Exactly. So Halcyon is already known for having that fantastic big flavor. It gives you those tropical notes on top of a West Coast IPA. So it's clear. It's got a great bitter bite to it. And the hops are coming in really around, from the US, from New Zealand, from Australia, and particularly that big Galaxy hop that's in it. We were one of the first UK brewers to use that, and it was put in Halcyon, and it just gives you such an oomph straight away, just big aroma, big flavor, and a beer that, a hop that we've since used an awful lot of. But Halcyon's always had that reputation. It's one of our finest beers. So when people had suggested that to us, we thought, perfect, why not? Give it a bit of a try, give it a tweak. You end up with almost like an East Coast version of Halcyon with that DDH. So it's got that real haze in there. It's got that softness. So it brings down that classic Halcyon bitterness, which I think maybe has got a few people, especially over this last weekend, because that softness belies its kind of big ABV. It's still 7.5%. We've done mango Halcyon, pineapple Halcyon. I remember years ago, mango Halcyon really got me because it is still big and strong, but it's so fresh and juicy. It just, you want to drink a lot of it when you shouldn't. So DDH Halcyon is in that same vein where you can easily, happily drink through all this 7.5% beer. You get those huge tropical aromas coming through straight off the bat. You spin it around, you hold the glass away from your face, and you will really start to get everything just emanating out. And it continues right on the palate. So it gets towards from being that big bite to being what you hear people describing as, I know Russell hates it, but juicy, it's soft, it's pillowy, and it really just aids that drinkability as well, I think. So hopefully people have been enjoying DDH Halcyon as much as me. I was a big Halcyon fan as long as we've been brewing it. So when we did this version, I've been very, very excited. And I've been trying to take it steady when I've enjoyed it. But, it's sometimes it gets the better of you. But what did you think, Russell, of the DDH?
Yeah, I mean, you took the words out of my mouth in terms of soft. It's a lot softer, but yeah, a couple of stories on DDH Halcyon. I mean, we've got it in the tap room on draft, and we were preparing to stick it on, and a couple of my staff said, "Oh, we can only do 2/3. You know, responsible drinking, only maximum 2/3." So we did that in a very safe tap room environment with plenty of health and safety. Yeah, I go down to Peakender on Friday, 7 by the pint, hay bales on even ground. I think, oh my lord, but yeah, so. Yeah, for me it was a great beer. But then, yeah, the first time I experienced DDH Halcyon was every now and again when Charlotte is out of ideas and out of people and she's on her own in the office, she will head up towards the tap room, flutter her eyelashes, and ask me to take a couple of photos with said beer to go onto social media. So down to the river I go. And before I know it, after she's like, just one more shot, just one more shot, keep drinking, keep drinking, keep drinking. You know, I'm 3/4 of a can down, I'm catching the bus home. So that's my experience with DDH Halcyon. But in terms of a beer, softer Halcyon at 7.4%, dangerous.
Yes, it is. I remember being there as well, Russ. I'm not sure Charlotte was, she didn't have the pointy stick out forcing you to do so. I think it was a little bit of both, maybe. But
I like to blame other people, okay?
at least you didn't fall in the river anyway.
No, it didn't. No, just about was okay, yeah.
Nice. And Clay, did you have a chance to try this one over the weekend, over Peakender?
Yeah, actually, first time now. I've just put it out. Yeah, I love Halcyon. The double dry hop's really good. I think, yeah, I always kind of think with Thornbridge beers. Whenever I go into a bar or a pub, or well, it's Thornbridge pub or otherwise, and I see Kipling or Halcyon, I get very excited. Again, old school purist. I feel the same about Sequoia as well. So it doesn't always have to be exactly the same sort of style. But yeah, just it's an absolute classic Halcyon as a beer. Yeah, I think this is awesome. I think you've done really well with it.
Yeah, it's been, like I say, it's been popular already. Steve there saying needs to come in the Stone pint-sized cans. Yeah.
I saw that. I enjoyed that. Yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. Steve's got the two cans next to each other there. You're well prepped, Steve.
Yeah,
Stone
there
cans.
you go. Good man.
Love.
What a vasa.
Nice.
Well, maybe next year when we brew it in the States.
There you go. I know we need to do a return brew of some sort as well. We like to do our away legs and home legs too. So we are at the mercy, I suppose, is the best way of California Customs at the moment, as we desperately tried to get Chris a case of the beer too. So we're getting it through at the moment though, so we won't be thirsty for too long. We're trying to get him as fresh as possible. It'll be easier for him if we do a nice return brew there in the States as well. So he'll just have to get it back this way.
Well, I was going to San Diego. It's a tough place to go, isn't it? But we have to do it. We have to do it. So.
Yeah, I can imagine. Paul there as well. Yeah, not sickly, nice bitterness to it. Yeah, juicy and pillowy still. So yeah, it's sort of really ticked all the boxes we wanted to. We've been very pleased with it as well. But yeah, so I mean, overall, that is our box for this month. As I say, it's been one of my absolute favorites. It's gone down very well already from everything that we can see. All of the social media is looking on Untapped and everything like that as well. So yeah, fantastic one. We will, for the dark beer fans, one of the Pardus will be coming back next month. So don't worry, normal service will be resumed in that sense. We'll have our Timothy Taylor's collab. We're going to have some really fun stuff coming through. So keep an eye out. We'll keep everyone updated as we go as well. The date for that will be the 21st. We'll do it on the Thursday there as well. So please, hopefully, come join us. We'll see you then. In the meantime, keep up with us on socials and email and however you like. Just keep in touch. It's always nice to hear from everyone. Hopefully see more of you in person as well. If it's at the Colmore Drinking Stone, up at the tap room, or anywhere like that too. So thank you, Tom, for joining us this evening, for taking the time. It was great to hear about Stone and catch up and chat as well, of course. Russell, thank you as always. And Charlotte, thank you for looking after the chat this evening and keeping everything on track too. So yeah, most importantly, thank you everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I'm going to make sure to have a bit more Westside Glory. Going to really just work my way through and enjoy that one as well here too. So hope everyone has a good evening and see you all in September. So thank you all. Cheers, guys. And have a good night.
Cheers.